Show. Reigning champ, Tim Keck.
Timothy Keck. You're listening to
Come at me show.
Come at me show.
Basketball shorts.
Come at me show.
Did we say the show was good?
Hey, everybody. How are we doing today? Wow. Oh, wow. What a crazy night last night. Yes, I'm talking presidential debates. And I know what you guys come to me for. You come to me for my hard-hitting political opinions. And I'm ready to give them. I watched the whole thing. And if I watch 90 minutes of something, you're damned right I'm going to turn it into content. So here we go. In-depth political analysis of the presidential debate that we watched last night. I haven't watched a lot, but I got to tell you, it was pretty fun. Since I know nothing about politics, I'm joined by my good friend and self-proclaimed lover of politics, Patrick. What do your friends call you?
The adults call me Pat.
Okay, Pat. I'm joined by my good friend.
That makes it seem like I have
Pat Wise. How's it going, bud?
That's good, man. I'm doing good.
Nice.
How are you doing?
I'm doing okay. I'm a little shook. I'm a little shaken. I don't know what's going on in the world.
I know. So I was very excited to watch the debate, and you had said, I'm probably not going to watch it. I'll watch maybe a little bit of it. And then you came out and you watched the whole thing with me.
I was not excited for this. I thought it could only go badly. And in a lot of ways, I was correct. I mean, it was a brutal slugfest of boredom. I was anxious the whole time. I don't know. Okay, maybe I should go into my political background or my leanings coming in, and then maybe you could do the same. I really hate both of these candidates. Trump is obviously a monster who is just destroying our country. And Joe Biden is just an incompetent old man who I was not convinced could string together 90 minutes of speech in any capacity, you know? And it's tough, right? My podcast is like 45 minutes top. And by the end, I'm scrambling. And I was like, really? This 78-year-old man is going to be talking for 90 minutes against the worst heckler of all time? I mean, it's crazy. So I don't enjoy either of these candidates. I'm going to vote for Joe Biden. And I thought for sure he was going to blow it in a big way, or he would be exposed and we would realize how old and senile and upsetting he was. And I got to tell you, my main takeaway is I think he's okay.
That actually is one of the saving graces, I think, of the whole evening, is that he actually did fine, I think. I think, all things considered, I think Joe did a perfectly fine job. You know, he was up against the craziest nonsense I've ever seen in my life. And he stood his ground. And, I was thinking he was going to go up there and just fumble all over the place and not really get anything together. Like he said, not string any sentences together. But he did. He got his points out and he looked at the camera. I felt like he was looking at us when he did that. That was good. There were moments that I liked.
I think Obama had a way of speaking, and these guys talk so much. If you're a politician, or specifically the president, you spend so much time talking, and a lot of it is written out for you, and a lot of it you're just kind of pulling out of your ass as you go. You know, you got to speak at a dinner or whatever. You got to say something inspiring to the troops. You're probably repeating a lot of the stuff. And Obama had like the speech habit, I think, of taking long pauses when he was thinking, and his just like the way he spoke was very calm and felt very deliberate, but it gave him time to think about what the next thing is. And both of these guys are kind of ramblers a bit. Like Trump really rambles and goes back and just has these string on these sentences and they're great and then they're the best and it just kind of all over the place. And Biden gets worked up and kind of talks in a similar ish way, I think, but he's just a creature of momentum and he's throwing a bunch of words out and he stutters a bit and he fumbles his stuff. And every stutter he had, I was on the edge of my seat like, oh my God, this is it. This is when he completely loses it. And I was shocked how he hung in there. I was honestly impressed. I guess that's the wrong thing to say for a presidential candidate. I was impressed by how alive and mentally stable he appeared to be.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that honestly, there were some moments where like you were just like, I don't even care what he's saying, like because he would come back, it would just get so frustrated, and you could see he was like, I think some people were talking about this, that like clearly they've been teaching him how to like keep his cool.
Yeah.
Because he definitely has a tendency sometimes to get really angry and get really worked up, and it looks bad. And you could tell in that like there were some moments where he was just like, his head was down, he was just like, just breathe, you got this, like, and then he'd just be like, just shut up, man, you know. And I think like those moments are just like, yeah, that's what we all want. We all just want someone to say shut up. I don't think anyone's told him to shut up, really.
Is that good? Do you think? I mean, you know more about this side of things than I do. I find it's like politics is like baseball, where it's like, a minor thing like a bat flip is somehow like just a big story. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
So, like,
oh, did you see what he did there? He flicked his hand in that way, and that means the pitcher's going to throw out.
The pitcher's going to knock his teeth out in the next at bat.
You wouldn't notice it. I mean, I think a lot of like, I honestly look at this debate, and I think this is the wake-up call that a lot of the media needed, because they've been covering Trump and they've been covering this whole administration like it is just a regular president. But then you see that and you're like, this is that last night was just sort of an accumulation of everything that's happened in the last 4 years. It's just been chaotic. It doesn't make any sense. It's rambling. A lot of it isn't true. Most of it isn't true. A lot of it is just like, did you just make that up? Also, the numbers. He would make these numbers. He said he had a rally that we had 30,000 to 40,000 people. And I was like, okay, I'll remember this number. I went in. The most he had was 7. 7. So he had 7,000 people at a rally. And so just like, and also just no one's going to check that. Like no one's really going to like go home and be like, I bet it wasn't 30,000, except for me. My brain is like, I got to remember these like specifics and how much he exaggerates these things.
They remember the line to Biden. That's because nobody will go to your rallies or whatever he
exactly,
said.
because no one will go to your rallies.
If you're a Trump guy, that's a great line.
Yes, it's a great line if there isn't a global pandemic, because then you're like, well, we don't want him to have rallies anyways. And like no one expects him to be pulling down huge crowds during a pandemic.
Right.
I mean, so I don't think that really works that well. I mean, yeah, I don't think it looked good for him at all.
And Joe's telling him to shut up and calling him a clown. I mean, is that like crazy? I mean, I guess I made the baseball analogy where it's like, yeah, they're just, it seems like they're subtle things. And I think like I think maybe the appeal of Trump to people who like him is that he seems like a straight shooter. We know it's bullshit, but he's at least speaking in a way that most politicians won't, and it comes across as more candid. And he could be telling lies, but like the way he's speaking, it's still more candid than the way most politicians speak most of the time. And I feel like, you know, Bernie's kind of the same way. We're like, whatever. He goes on a TV show and he says, you know, yeah, the health insurance system's bullshit, and people go crazy. And it's like, wow, This isn't how people talk. Right. I remember being very frustrated with Hillary, like after she lost and she went on like Pod Save America and gave an interview with them where she just appeared way more human and casual. And it's like, yeah, but this is what people want. Like Trump's winning being like his authentic, just being like real. Like that's what's in now, you know, as far as the internet is concerned. And I think that the kind of moments where Biden is like being a real person and telling this guy to shut up and calling him a clown, it's like maybe it's edgy for politics, but it's also like how we would react in real life if this was happening to us.
Totally. I mean, I think those moments are great. And there are people that are saying that, like, you know, it brings everything down. Like we have the president on this pedestal. Like you can't do these certain things. There's just decorum. But like, it just feels human for someone to be like, you're a clown. He said you were the worst president in American history.
That's crazy.
And I was just like, he is. I mean, you know, and like that, you can't fact check that. That's an opinion, obviously. But like, it's when someone says it to his face, it feels good. It feels like it's, you know, it's cathartic for all of us, I think. You know, one of the great moments I was telling you about that Joe Biden had recently was that he was giving a speech to the troops. He was just like, clap, you stupid bastards. And it's just like, you're like, yeah, this guy, you know, we've come a long way from like, I can get a beer with this guy. But like, you know, I feel like if Joe Biden wasn't 87, however old he is, I'd probably have a beer with him, you know? I don't think Trump like even couldn't, because he doesn't drink. He'd just have McDonald's and then he would eat it by himself.
That's a fascinating thing too. Trump doesn't drink. That's like,
I do think
I
that,
forgot
like,
about that, but that's
yeah.
real.
doesn't drink. I think there's an element of, I think that sort of points to a little bit of the, like, his mindset, which is like, he doesn't see the point. What's the point of drinking? The point of, like, it's to make yourself more charming. But he's like, I'm already the most charming human being ever lived.
You're right.
So like he doesn't need the confidence boost that alcohol gives.
Makes you
people.
more confident, makes you feel good.
He's just like, I'm already that every second of every day.
Man, yeah, that's a good point.
He was definitely on Adderall though. Like he was definitely like, I see him do the speeches in like the Rose Garden, and he's like a little quieter, a little slower. But last night he was like going 100 miles an hour, and that's because he's on something for sure.
Yeah.
It's also, I feel like his mode. He likes to be in there and just like yell at
Likes to be
people.
mixing up. Oh my God. The amount of times he interrupted was insane. And I did see, because, on my social media, I've still got a lot of Florida people on my social media, which I like. I like to be in touch with what, the other side is thinking. I say the other side. It's like the people I grew up with. And a lot of them are Republicans and conservatives. And I understand why somebody would be a Republican. At this point, I don't really understand why somebody would be a blatant Trump supporter. Honestly, I don't understand why anyone would ever be a political supporter. Like, who's buying a Biden t-shirt? Who's getting excited about I get Hillary Clinton because she'd be like the first female president. I think that's like
Right.
that's obviously like a thing. Obama, change. He's the first black president we've ever had. That's an exciting thing. But there's people who are getting excited about like Marco Rubio or Pete Buttigieg, and it's like, what are you talking about here? This is just more of the same in another package. There's nothing to be excited about here.
I'm a big fan of no heroes. There's no people. Like, it's the ideas. The person who gets who has the ideas that you have, like, I'll go for them, woman or man or whoever. The person is going to be a fallible person. They're not perfect. That's why, like, when people stand somebody so hard, I'm like, well, they're human, and like they're just like a
Right.
vehicle for these ideas. So like, don't get too precious. And Pete doesn't win, and then just gets so upset that you can't do anything.
Yeah. So one of the reasons I'm not as big a fan of Biden is I think he's basically as conservative a liberal as you can have. Right.
Yeah,
Like he's
an
very.
establishment Democrat. He's a former vice president under Obama. Like, it's gonna be a lot of that stuff.
He's, in my mind, a lot of the problem of
Yeah.
like our country and the establishment. And he was like a counterbalance to Obama, like to get more of the moderate and more of the right. I thought that was the impression I had.
Yeah, I mean, he definitely is on the conservative end of the spectrum as far as the left is concerned. And that's the thing, is like they're trying to paint him as this like radical.
That's what I was going to
like,
ask, is like, so when Trump's like asking him about all these things, like for the party, and Biden's like, I am the party. I mean, how real is that? Is that a real sentiment? I mean, is he doing the right thing, trying to pin Bernie's causes on Biden?
I don't think it works. The reason why is because it's Biden. Like, he doesn't seem radical at all. Like,
Yeah.
like you can look at him and he's like, this guy is the radical. Like, I mean, even Bernie Sanders could go up and he's a little bit more like kind of funky and he's got a crazy hair, but like, it's like, really, this old guy is running Antifa? Like, what are you talking about? I don't think anyone believes it. I mean, like, all the polls say that like they trust Biden to handle police violence and like the sort of just like violence in general more than Trump. And they see that Trump's like does it on purpose. He said it last night. He was like, one of your one of the people who work for you said this is all designed. You do this on purpose. You foment violence because it's good for you. And he's like, who said that? He's like, Kellyanne Conway said it.
Yeah.
Like, she just said it in an interview. Like, we all heard it, and she's famous for just like just spewing, screwing up. Remember alternative facts? I'll never forget that.
What'd you think about Trump's firm denial of white supremacists and his firm shaming of the Proud Boys that he got out there?
So so this is actually really interesting because he definitely obviously goes out of his way to not say anything bad about them.
Right.
The wording he used was stand back and stand by.
Yeah.
And so everyone's kind of focused on that. It's like, that means stand by. That means like, stand nearby. I don't know if Trump is smart enough to like say something like that coded. I just think he just he just said something and then he moved on. Like he didn't want to deal
Right.
with it. He didn't want to talk about it at all. So he said whatever came to his head, which is like stand back, stand down, whatever. Moving on. The left is the problem. I think it's the dismissal of the entire question is more of a problem than what he actually said.
I agree. I think it's like a symptom of him like not caring about. Like he doesn't. You're right. I don't think he's like codedly addressing the Proud Boys and like this conservative base, but he knows that they like him and he doesn't want to go after them.
Right.
So I think the standby thing is him just brushing it off. I don't think it's coded language,
No.
which I think people are taking it that way. I
The
think
Proud
liberals
Boys
are taking
are.
it that way, and I think people on the right who are like, "Oh, we're the Proud Boys." He mentioned the Proud Boys. I think the people in the Proud Boys are excited that they were mentioned in the debate,
Mhm.
and when given the opportunity to say, "You guys need to stop. You guys need to cut it out," he says, "Stand by." I mean, that stand down and stand by is crazy. I mean, that's insane. And the fact that he can't understand the difference, even though I agree it's like flippant, I don't think it's coded language, but the fact that he can't recognize that his words like that have power and he would rather go after Antifa, which I don't even think is a real thing. You know,
Well, yeah,
it's
like
crazy.
Biden had it right. He said last night that Antifa is an idea. It's not a group. It's like this.
Right.
It's just like it's a movement. It's like Black Lives Matter is an actual organization, but it's
But it's still more of a movement.
right. It's an idea. It's like
The Proud Boys have a leader. They're organized.
right.
They like mobilize units. They communicate and all this stuff. And I mean, Black Lives Matter is a movement, but it's like a leaderless movement as opposed to like a
Yeah, I think
group.
I think there are people. I'm not sure exactly. I can't speak to the exact like structure of it, but I think there are individuals who are like there is a structure to it more than I understand. But
Yeah. Proud Boys.
proud like
That's
so.
what I'm-
I was listening to another podcast about QAnon, and they were talking
Yeah.
about how
I don't
Like,
even understand
it-
QAnon.
it gets to this point where like they're just spewing bullshit, and then they're like look through the lines like here's what this means, this is what this means, and like I think that's what they do with Trump. They just like they just say stuff and they're like, oh, that's what this means. This means stand by. This means like he's got them ready to go. I'm like, no, I think he's an idiot and like didn't want to say anything bad about them, which he doesn't.
Right.
And because if he was smart, I think you could just say, I denounce them. And they know you don't mean it. Right. Like that's the thing is like, he could have just done it. And like all the Proud Boys would be like, yeah, but we know he's lying. He lies about everything else. Why didn't he just lie about that? That's what I don't understand.
Right.
You lie about everything. Why not just lie that you denounce white supremacy? He
Yeah.
couldn't do it, which I think is fascinating. I don't understand that.
I mean, the flip side I saw online that I don't know if I didn't really think about it at all, but someone then goes like, "Oh, but Biden can't say Black Lives Matter." And I mean, I didn't think of an opportunity where
Was
he's
he asked to?
I don't think he was asked to.
He was asked to say law. He was asked to say the phrase law and order.
Trump kept asking him to say the phrase law and order, which I agree that Biden, of the people running for president in the Democratic Party, is probably more pro cop than a lot of them at this point,
Yeah.
or as pro cop as you can be in the Democratic Party. But I mean, I kind of agree with a lot of the things he says, where it's like, I don't know, the defunding language is so confusing to me, where it's like, I don't know. At first, I thought it meant like, which I kind of think it is like you take a hard look at the budget, you take the money that was going towards tanks, you put it towards training these people, you look at their responsibilities as police officers because they have way too much on their plate. You see if you can come up with any other creative ways to split that off, maybe like get the community involved, get psychologists involved, just spread some of the burden around and maybe make it a little easier on everybody and set police officers for success. I mean, that's what I was interpreting defund as initially. But I mean, I have friends out here in Brooklyn who are just like, defund means abolish the police. And I'm just like, okay, well, this is why people hate us.
Right.
Like you want to get rid of police. That's an insane radical idea. And that's something that no police officer is going to be on board for.
Yeah. It's also just like, it's a lot. It's a lot
It's
for people
so
to take on.
much.
It's like scary. It's scary to think about like when everything is so like tense everywhere and to think we're going to get rid of these people that a lot of people still see as protecting them. it doesn't mean everyone does. And absolutely, like there are, major groups of people who are under attack constantly by the police, but there's a large swath of people that you need to get invested in the idea of police, like this reform. You have to convince them that this is a good idea. And if you're scaring them, that's what Trump's trying to do. He's trying to scare them too. He's trying to say, if, Joe Biden gets power, he's going to ruin the suburbs. The suburbs are going to be overrun.
He loves the suburbs. Trump loves it. Brian had the best line, one of the best lines of the night, which is Trump wouldn't know the suburbs unless he took a wrong turn or something like that.
I like that. And I think there is actually coded language. The coded language of the suburbs are going to be overrun means there are going to be black people.
It's black
in the
and white.
suburbs.
Yeah.
100%.
It's a racial
and that
language
is
for sure.
racial coded language. 100%.
Yeah.
That he is, you don't have to be that smart to figure that out. So that's why I feel like he can do that.
Yeah.
He figures that one out because he's a dotty old racist. He's an old racist. And like being racist is not difficult if it's been
Right.
part of your psyche for like your entire life.
I think I see a lot of stuff online and like the pro-Trump people I know, and they're all just saying he's not racist. He's not racist. And they point to all the ways he's not racist. And I mean, I think Biden too has a history of doing like racist programs. I mean, he didn't call them super predators, but he certainly supported legislation that,
Our country is racist.
marginalized. I mean, all the people in the establishment, anyone who's been around, especially that age, if you're over 60, you've done something, you have some
We've all done something.
you're holding on to some beliefs. We've all done something. I guess I shouldn't be putting an age on it. Like
No, I mean,
we all have our biases.
and we're all like, also we're all reaping the benefits of a racist system. Like, I, as a white man, I get benefits just from walking around like that every single day.
Right.
And it's like, not that, I'm not a racist person. I don't like to think I am, but like I still benefit from a racist system.
Yeah.
So if you talk about that, then it's like, it's not your fault. People, when you call them people racist, they feel like they're under attack. And it's like, they're a bad person. And I think that's, but coming back to what you said earlier about like how to get people together, get the community together. Biden did speak to that last night when he was like, I think what we should do is like, if I'm, what do we do about the violence? I get everybody together in a room and we talk about it.
Yeah.
And like, no one talks to Trump. Like he doesn't talk to half the party. He doesn't talk to half the Congress. So like there is nothing is happening. And I did think that Biden spoke to that a lot too, where he's like, he's not doing anything.
Right.
Like, it's not that he's doing a horrible job, but he's also not doing anything.
Yeah.
And wouldn't you rather have someone who's doing something?
Yeah, and Trump's only counter to that is you would have done worse, which I think is
Right.
fascinating.
Which is
There was zero policy discussion last night, by the
None.
way. Absolutely none from either group. I don't know if Biden would have wanted to talk policy. I don't know if he was like ready to talk policy. We'll never know because it was not in the cards. And Trump clearly did not want to talk about it either. I mean, he was content to interrupt and just like belittle him and make fun of his son for this like Russia thing that I don't even really understand, but I'm pretty sure has been disproven.
So I looked into it. Because the New York Times had like a fact check last night, and I read some of them. One of them was the best one was Trump said they're trying to get rid of cows because during the like global warming portion, he's like they're going to try to get rid of cows, and they're like false. There's no one's trying to get rid of cows.
Yeah.
It's like yes, cows have methane gas, so like we have to take a good look at like. No one's saying get rid of all the cows. It reminds me of my dad. My dad is a Trump supporter, and he posted on Facebook once. He said, he posted this thing and said, "Liberals are trying to kill dogs." And I was like, "What? What are you talking about?" And he was
Oh my
like,
gosh.
"Defund the police means they're going to defund police canine units, and they're not going to feed the dogs, and the dogs are going to die." And I was like, no one is saying that. No one is saying kill the dogs. That's crazy.
The problem is there's probably one guy saying kill the dogs. And that's the dude your dad saw.
That's
and
Steve.
he's like,
Steve, no one talks to him. No one likes him. He's crazy. But yeah, they did talk about a little policy with climate change. And I think that's like the green jobs thing is how you can get more jobs to come back, and we can get clean energy. It's two things. I really wish they would have pressed Trump in the same way they did about white supremacy, being like, Trump, is global warming a problem? Like,
right.
and if he was like, no, which he would have said no, he'd be like, well, there's your answer. This guy is going to do nothing about this.
Right. And I don't know if you even would have used the words no. Probably he would have just gone around
Like,
it.
well,
He
the
would
left
have-
is gonna
it's
be
not-
way
it's a
worse.
problem. It would have been way worse. It's not an
It'll
issue.
be way worse with them. Way worse.
Yeah. I mean, that's all crazy. I don't know. You said that the moderator pressed him on the white supremacy thing. I don't even know if that really happened. I feel like there was criticism of Chris Wallace last night, and I haven't, I guess, watched enough debates. I mean, I feel like he did as good a job moderating a political debate as I've seen anyone do moderating a political debate. I don't feel like the moderators are usually very good. They don't pin anybody down on anything because the whole thing is for the candidates to skirt around the issues. And the moderators really have no control over anything. So
Even once he I don't know if you remember this, but he said, he's like, I'm going to ask you a question, Mr. Trump, and you can answer it, or you can just say whatever you
can
want. He's like giving him an out. He's just like, listen, you can say whatever you want. Just 2 minutes. Like literally you can say whatever you want. Just don't interrupt. And like, honestly, if Trump like could have just not just like played the rules, he could have spewed anything he wanted and he probably would have done fine. But he couldn't stop running over by. And I think there's actually, I think there's a strategy there. I think that was the strategy.
I think there's definitely a strategy there. And I think that they're upset that they didn't get Biden to lash out more.
Yeah, they wanted to break him, and he didn't. And I'm proud of him for it. Like that took a lot. He said a lot of like stuff that Biden. I mean, if you think about it, Biden said a lot of stuff last night that you've never heard. He talked about his son having a cocaine problem.
Yeah,
and he said like he openly admitted he's like he did, and he dealt with it, and I'm really proud of him.
I think that was a powerful moment too.
That's really powerful. I mean, because the stigma around drug abuse in this country is so toxic, especially with like heroin and all the stuff that's like killing people. Like people are dying. We need to talk about this openly. We need to talk about how like these people need help, and not that they're criminals,
right?
So I was really happy to hear that. That's like a powerful message. I think that's where he kind of shines. He has a really, really tough family history that really like makes him feel human. He's dealt with a lot of loss and death, and like he even said that he's like, look at your dinner table, is who's missing at the dinner table, and he was like, there would be a lot more if it was you. Like that's such a horrible thing to say because those people are missing people. It doesn't matter that more people or less people. It's just like those people are real, no matter what the number is. People have died.
Right. People don't want to hear, oh, you lost somebody. It could have been worse.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
It's brutal. I mean, and Biden, I definitely noticed him. He went out of his way to make eye contact, like in the camera, speak to the American at home, to the people sitting at home. And, you kind of got to hope that's more powerful than Trump just interrupting. I mean, I didn't see any other thought. I didn't see any real thought from Trump other than I want to interrupt Joe and get him flustered. And I mean, I feel like there were a couple things that Joe maybe got stuck on. I'm trying one I've seen brought up is like the police thing is like, if you're a police officer, a police union, I don't know if they're all supporting Trump, but I don't really know why you would support Joe Biden necessarily. I mean, one guy is saying we support the police blindly and we want to give you more money. And the other person is saying like, we need to take a look at the way policing is done in this country. We need to make change. And I know if I'm a cop and someone, or if I have any job for that matter, and someone says you're doing a great job and someone says we need to review everything, I'm going to be like, I like the other guy more, you know? I like the first dude more.
They say that exactly about like fracking, people who work in energy, and they're like, he's just like, he's going to ban fracking. And then he has to be like, no, like we're going to like look into, like we're going to be careful about it. And like, we're not going to completely get rid of it. But like in an ideal world, like we do want to get rid of it. And like a couple of the candidates in the Democratic Party said they wanted to, but like Pennsylvania's got a bunch of fracking people, and then they lose a bunch of votes in Pennsylvania because of it. And
it's Hillary and the coal miners all over again. It feels like.
Yeah. I heard a lot of people saying that he shouldn't do another one. Biden shouldn't do another.
Yeah,
one.
I did want to ask you about that. I feel like this was kind of a waste of time. I think if Biden says he doesn't want to do another one, Trump's going to say, why are you scared? And then it's like, he's too cowardly to debate me because I mopped the floor with him in the debate. Does that mean anything? Does that equal anything? Do people buy that? But I can pretty much guarantee that's the response if Biden tries to back out.
100%.
Is he's going to get called names. He's going to get called the coward. He's going to do whatever. But I think he can also turn around to everybody and say, this is a joke. We agreed to rules. He didn't follow them. I'm trying to get my message out there.
But even when I hear even you saying that, I'm like, he didn't follow the rules. Oh, that's too bad.
Exactly.
You know, I'm like, yeah, I think, I mean, I don't know for sure how he feels, Biden feels. I mean, these are what people have said, but like, I feel like if I'm Joe Biden, I'm like, get me back out there tomorrow. Like, I want to go back at this again because, you know, I'm fired up. Like, he made me angry, and like Biden angry, he's like, you know, his
It's
anger
compelling.
can sometimes come through like in a really good way. He kind of fumbled it, but like he really had a good attack when he was like, you talk about the troops, you say the troops were losers. My son is not a loser. And no, that's a huge, that's like, you know, if he delivers that line perfectly, that like we hear that forever.
That's the other disappointing thing is like, that's not to be completely nitpicky, but like, he's not capable of delivering those lines perfectly.
It's the lines that we remember like for years. Like there's the Reagan line. Like I feel like I forget what it was, but like there are lines that like from these debates that like last forever, you know.
And Biden, I don't think is going to have. They're not just not going to have the same impact because it's not really who he is.
No,
he's not that good. He's not that well spoken. He's not that concise. But I think that's kind of what makes him cool and charming and appealing at all. I mean, ultimately, I feel like, not to keep harping on whatever, these guys are both awful candidates. I don't understand why once somebody like gets to 70 years old and they're like retired from their real jobs, everyone's like, oh, great. Now you have more time to concentrate on running the entire country. I mean, these people should not be anywhere involved in the presidency. We should definitely have an age cap on this. I mean, Trump's too old. Bernie's too old. I mean, Bernie at least has ideas. I mean, there's people I like, regardless whether or not you like them. I mean, I don't know. It's hard to look at these like old guys and feel any sense of anything. I can't help but thinking that even like Kamala would have mopped the floor with Trump. I don't know. How do you see like a younger candidate if they'd just gone in a completely different direction, gone with Kamala or even like Pete or someone like that against Trump in a debate?
I think that I ultimately worry about anybody.
Yeah.
I mean, you're gonna get a few quick-witted remarks, but like he knows, like this is his game. Like it's a TV world. It's a TV debate is like where Trump lives. He lives and breathes television, and so he knows how to like, you know, stumble over your punchline, so like you don't really get it out, and like there is no. I think that's probably what a lot of the talking over was. It's just so you don't have a clip. You never have a clip to play on the news over and over and over again because he knows
that's interesting.
That's going to happen. If you get a clear punch on him, they're going to play that punch over and over and over again. They're going to say Biden punched him, even if he punches him once. You know, they're like everybody hears Trump got punched, you know, real hard. And if he doesn't let him get any punches in cleanly, he comes out looking like he won, even though he's beat to shit. So I don't know. I don't know how anybody would deal with the debate. I am really excited to see Kamala and Pence debate because I think Pence doesn't do what Trump does, and Kamala Harris is a prosecutor and can really go at you if she wants to.
Yeah.
And I think also what I really want to see is someone go after Mike Pence because Mike Pence embodies like a part of the Republican Party that is really, really problematic, which is like the religious right. Religious right is, you know, they're the ones pushing to cut Roe v. Wade, to get rid of Roe v. Wade, and like all the anti-gay, whatever's left of that, they're still trying to push through. He's the embodiment of that. Trump could give two shits about Roe v. Wade. He just wants to win, and he wants to get rid of the Affordable Care Act because Obama it was his Obama's. But like, if Trump can get out of office, getting rid of Obama's like one big legacy, then he is king. He'll be king of the right.
Yeah.
And he's been trying so hard to do it, and the judge is how he's going to try to actually get it done.
Yeah, that judge thing is scary. I feel the same way I felt about this debate, where I'm like, I have no interest in watching the vice presidential debate, but I'll probably end up watching it. I don't know. Kamala is exciting, I think, because she could potentially be the future of the Democratic Party. I mean, if Biden, I find it very hard to believe that Biden's going to run again.
I think he's already said he's not.
I think then the next step, the logical next step, is for Kamala to run.
Yeah,
And then you got 8 years of Kamala, and now you're talking about 12 years of a Democratic president, potentially.
Right. If you can in that time fix, gerrymandering and get DC statehood, and you can end the filibuster, you can probably actually get some stuff done, and you could probably actually swing the demographic of the country that is leaning towards Democrats mostly. All these things that are super popular, you can actually maybe get them passed.
Yeah.
People really like the Affordable Care Act. They want more. They want more affordable health care. They want more of that, more access to that, like by a pretty large margin. A lot of people want marijuana legalization. They want a clean energy. They want more. Like there's stuff we can do. We can actually get stuff done.
I'm hopeful Kamala will do it. I feel like Biden, if anything, will just be resetting everything, maybe back to normalcy. And I hope that Kamala is like leaning more and more left, which I think she is. I think she's like coming around and being more liberal and like letting her liberal flag fly and like doing that thing a little bit more.
I think that as anyone can see that the country is also like pretty quickly and rapidly moving towards the left, especially with like George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and those things. Like I remember hearing everyone talk about how like these protests are different because white people are protesting. And like I wasn't really around in the civil rights movement, so I don't really know. But like
you weren't around during the civil rights
movement?
I
wasn't, Tim. I wasn't here.
You couldn't make it? Well, the rest of us were out there.
I was inside. I was
I was working the prompter for King.
But they were like there were no white people. And I was like never really thought about it. Like
except for Bernie Sanders.
Yeah, Bernie was there. For sure, Bernie. Yeah, exactly. But like you always see the pictures and you see like, you sort of see the front of the line. And I always assumed, wrongly so, that there were white people there. There weren't. And now they're like, now like there are white people in the streets. I'm like, wait, man, we weren't in the streets. Like, no one was out there. No one stood up. And like, but of course, like now it makes sense. Like they were out there and they were murdering these people. They were like, it was dark. It's like our history is a lot darker than we were told.
Yeah, no pun intended. You
Oh God.
But you're right. It's like growing up as a kid, you're like MLK, great guy. The civil rights movement came around and now everything's great.
Right. Also, we all were taught the civil rights movement was very popular.
It was very popular. It all worked out.
Unpopular.
We were all on board. And you're like teachers, like we were all there.
We were all there.
ML King marched and we all went. And
you're like, okay, sure you did.
And you're like, all right, okay. But yeah, you're definitely right. It's like, then you just like, take a look at another picture and you're just like, other than like Bernie and whatever,
Bernie,
I mean, there's a handful.
Nuns and like occasionally
that
feels like there's no white people. None.
I mean, yeah, that's really crazy to think about too. But I mean, you're right. I mean, it is cool. It is cool that this feels different. Everything now feels a little different.
And like I said, I think this comes back to the beginning thing I was saying, which is like, this is the kick in the ass that the Democrats, I think, need. And I think it started with the court, that sort of crisis where they were like, it's time to like stop playing by the rules you thought this game was being played by, because the other team is not playing by the rules. So it's time to actually just like shut up and do something. And I think that like the younger generation sees that and has seen that. I think the older generation is still holding on to this like Clinton era of like, we got along and we worked together. And it's like when people of us who grew up in like the post 9/11 world are like, what are you talking about?
Right.
Like, that's great. Like they're insane.
Yeah.
They just want to, bomb other countries and hate people with darker skin. And what are you talking about? You got along with them.
Yeah.
And it's hard because like that's when Joe Biden was coming up and he was doing a lot of his work. He was like getting along with Republicans. He was like getting along with even like segregationists. And it's a problem because now we look back and you're like, wasn't this always as horrible as it is now? And maybe it wasn't. Maybe like there was a little bit more. Again, I wasn't around.
Yeah, you missed out a lot.
Yeah.
The parties, dude.
And when I was younger, I was just getting fed all this propaganda from my parents or my father specifically. So I was a young Republican for a long time. Then I started reading and went to college, and then I became a leftist monster, according to him.
I mean, I get it. I definitely get, why someone would be a Republican. I think there's a lot of reasons why you would, especially depending on like your occupation. I mean, my hometown is kind of Trump country. I mean, it was one of the first places he went after he won the election. We have a lot of people who work for defense contractors there. I mean, if one party's supporting a high military budget and the other one's like, let's slash that thing, and your job is coming from military contracts,
right,
then it's a no-brainer to go for the other party. I don't think any of those people are bad people. I don't think conservatives are necessarily bad people. I think that I think the idea of supporting Trump as an individual is insane. And I think that all these social issues, I don't know. I think they get muddied down a lot, but there are definitely some hard truths in a lot of the social stuff. And just like treat other people the way you want to be treated. I feel like that's like a huge thing. When you see somebody who is being taken advantage of by a system, ask yourself if that was someone you cared about and loved, would you feel the same way? And I think that's the answer for everything ultimately, like all these social things.
Right. I think the problem is that I think there's a huge segment of the population that feels very unloved, alone, scared, broke. And then they get wrapped up in conspiracy theories of the internet and like really dark stuff. And then they start to hate. And like,
right.
It's like, I think, it's happened forever, but like it happens so much quicker with the internet. And I worry a lot about like the idea of like telling a QAnon like guy on like 4chan and be like, why don't we all just get along? They'd be like, I can't even imagine what if you had just typed that into 4chan, what people would say.
Yeah.
And so, it's difficult to just have like, that's the thing we all want to learn, but like there's even a deeper rot I think you have to get to first.
Right.
And it starts with like getting people money, because if people aren't broke,
yeah,
they're less pissed off. The 90s, like when you look at the 90s, like all the crap that like people were doing, and like it sort of seemed happier. Like I mean I was a kid obviously, but like it seemed like a lot of people had more money and things were going well. And obviously like there are groups that were totally struggling during that time. You've got crack and everything, and you've got like major inequality in that sort of realm. But inequality gets greater and greater and greater, and then eventually everyone's broke, and so everyone's broke, everyone's pissed off at each other, and everyone's blaming each other for why they're broke. And
right.
Everyone's trying to get one over on somebody else to like climb on each other's bodies so they can get up, further on the ladder. Meanwhile, the rich are just like in a helicopter looking down and laughing,
Yeah.
And that's sort of, I feel like that's why I like Bernie Sanders, because I feel like he understands the root of it all.
Yeah. I liked Bernie. Obviously, I'm a Bernie guy. I'm suddenly feeling uncomfortable with how serious and genuine this conversation has been. It's not what I normally do. No. I loved it. This is what I asked for. This is what we chose to do. I'm curious to see what my listeners thought of this. If you stuck through this, thank you for sticking around. I want to wrap it up on this one last point that I thought was interesting. End of the debate. One of the candidates encouraged every American, by whatever means they feel comfortable with, to vote, and that it was the right thing to do, and that there was no wrong way to do it. And if you do mess up, don't worry, we'll get your vote counted. There are things we can do to make sure your vote counted. And the other candidate did not do that. I feel like that says everything,
100%.
Everything to me.
All like, it's sort of like when I go to think about talking to a Republican and just like, or anybody, I mean, like, do you think it's more important for more people to vote, to more people to have access to voting?
Right.
If they say no, I'm just like, well, then you don't believe in democracy. Like, you don't actually believe in it. You believe in something else. Like, that's not what this is about. If you don't think that people should have the right to easily and accessibly vote, then I don't even know where we begin.
Yeah. Okay. I agree. Pat, thank you very much for stopping by.
Tim.
Guys, that is our show. Tuesday, I'll be back with a regularly scheduled episode. I think I'm talking about magic. Email the show. What?
Magic? What kind of magic?
Magic as in just magic from magicians.
Okay. They're talking Magic the Gathering.
Nope. And email the show, call the show, let me know. And King stays king. Bye.